everybody. Welcome to Brown Bag Lunch. I see all kinds of people here I'm so glad to see. And it's such a yucky day, so thank you. Thank you for coming. Hope you have a good time. Good time today. It's going to be all about things that hopefully that you remember. Remember, it's supposed to get, or it's going to get cold, and they're saying we're going to have lots and lots of snow this winter. So we'll see what happens. I love snow. We've got cards going around for Kendra Beck and Ruth Sheets and Darlene Wells. So please sign your name to those and we'll get those sent off. Want everybody to know that we're going to be closed for Thanksgiving. We'll have Brown Bag Lunch next week. It's going to be a mystery. And then we're going to be closed from the 26th, which is Wednesday before Thanksgiving, until the next Tuesday. Just so, and we'll be open the next Tuesday for Brown Bag Lunch. Just so everybody knows. And that Brown Bag Lunch is going to be given by Sue Mayberry. Thank you very much. And she just told me it's going to be called Working on the Railroads. And Working for the Railroad. Or, yeah. I don't know. Okay, it's going to be about railroads. Yeah. So, and so many people here worked for the railroads back in the day, so I'm sure that'll be a great program. Want everybody to remember that our holiday soup supper and cookie walk is coming up. It's always the second Tuesday of December, which means that it will be December 9th. It starts right after Brown Bag Lunch. Our Brown Bag Lunch that day is going to be done by Ray Scott. He has been busy at work. It's going to be about dairies. And the little dairies that, not creameries, but dairies that were around Jackson County during the day. And since he's a dairy farmer from Wisconsin, originally from Elwood, maybe Elwood, Lost Nation. Anyway, he has a lot to say about this, and we've got some really neat artifacts to show you about that. So those are the two Brown Bag Lunches. Then right after he's finished with his Brown Bag Lunch, we'll open the doors to the cookie room. We'll have lots of homemade cookies and homemade candies for sale by the pound. They're going to be $10 a pound as they were last year. And so that, along with the soup supper, is our big fundraiser for the holidays, at least, to help pay the bills and keep the building warm and the lights on. The soup supper itself is from 4:30 to 6:30. Hope everybody will come. We always have our 3 standard soups. Jack makes his vegetable barley. We have chicken noodle and chili. And this year the special soup is going to be cheesy potato, I believe. And so hopefully you'll come to that. There will be a silent auction. We have some great things to offer for our silent auction. So I hope everybody will plan to support that. And that'll be it for the year for us, except for more Brown Bag Lunches and whatever. So hopefully you'll all come for those things. I have one more announcement to make for Shirley Brandon. She wants everybody to know about the First United Methodist Church. They have their Christmas tea every year. It's Wednesday, December 3rd. It's from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. They have coffee and goodies. From 11 to 2, they have soup, sandwiches, and dessert. Everybody's welcome, and it's a free will offering. And I'll post this upstairs so you can take a look if you forget. Okay. That being said, I need to stop playing with the mouse because that just messes everything up. Okay, so I just always think it's interesting that Jackson County has a way of growing on people. You know, there's a lot of us, and stepping on the cord. There's a lot of us here today that have moved away for a while and ended up coming back to Jackson County. I'm kind of one of those people. And even the people that move away and don't come back, a lot of them manage to really stay in touch with us. And a case in point that we're going to be talking about today is Philip Hayes. I don't know how many of you remember Phil Hayes, but he grew up here. The last I knew, he was living in Tucson, Arizona. And we used to hear from him 3 or 4 times a year. And he was quite an interesting person. And he would send us great little nuggets of information, one of which we're going to talk about today. If I'd stop playing with the mouse, we'd be better off. Sorry. Okay, so interesting thing about Phil Hayes, I hope that he's still, I haven't heard from him for maybe a year and a half or 2 years now, so I hope that he's still well. He was quite a writer in his day. He sent us a lot of interesting material about Robert Millikan, the Nobel Prize winner that was from here. And there's an interesting story about he and Millikan. Philip wrote some articles about him and sent them on to Millikan. And then at one point he was in Chicago where Millikan was living and working at the University of Chicago. And so he called Millikan on the phone and introduced himself and talked to him. And Robert Millikan, as famous as he was, invited Phil over to his apartment and they had lunch together. And a really nice time. And it just, you know, two Macokotans that just never forgot their hometown. Well, in 2017 it was, Phil sent a program called Carnival Capers back to us, and we just found it really interesting. It's about a program, as you can see, that was done by Makokota PTA in 1954. And he was very amused by the ads that are in this program, and so said that, you know, we really had to read these. So at the time we did brown bag lunch about him, and it was a lot of fun. And Kathy and Eric, who've been straightening out our files upstairs, came across this and thought maybe this would be a good time to repeat this program. Partly because, as you know, Briggs Elementary School is going through a huge transformation right now. If you've been by there, they're tearing things down and building things up and doing all kinds of things. And this was something that they did when Briggs was first started, when Briggs first opened. So you taught at Briggs, right? Both of you. Lots of you. Okay, awesome. Okay, so please feel free to add, okay? Were any of you there when it opened? No, you're too young. I forget not everybody's as old as I am. Okay. So first the event, okay? When I was growing up here, they had post-war student enrollment boom, and that caused a need for extra classrooms in Makokota. And I don't know how many of you were involved in that, but you know, Elaine Connexton Edwards that comes quite often, and Janet Deppie Mitchell that we just lost. We were all part of a group that in 6th grade, we were sent to the upstairs of the old City Hall to go to school. That's where our school was. Mrs. Lovin, Ruth Lovin, wife of Harold Lovin, was our teacher, and there was another 6th grade class on the other half of the building. But we went to school for a year in the upstairs of City Hall. I can tell you that when the fire department was downstairs, and when the fire siren went off, and we were right underneath it, we had a headache for a week. It was really terrible. But other grades were farmed out other places. I know some people went to school in the library, and there were just all sorts of places all around town where they put classes because there was not enough room in the school. So finally, after a couple of tries, a bond issue was passed, right? And by 1954, a new building was erected. And at first it was called Makokota Elementary School, and then in 1964 it was renamed after Ansel Briggs, so it became Briggs Elementary School. And it was ready for occupancy by September of that year. Well, because of budget restraints, we all still hear about those, and in Jerry Rasmussen's word, he called it a very Spartan building. And that was because the bond issue was for $297,000. That's what they spent to build the school. That allowed for 21 classrooms, offices, restrooms, and a multi-purpose room that had a stage and a kitchen. That's kind of what they got for their money. So any extra equipment, furniture, etc., was added as funds became available. And that meant donated by the PTA or other local organizations. I'm sure a lot of them helped out. But what we're going to talk about today is the November fundraiser. And they called it, as you can see, Carnival Capers. And it was a very successful fundraiser. So, I don't know if you remember Betty Telvison, but she was president of the PTA back then, 1954. And here you see her, as you could read, trying to get people to mark their calendars and come to this event. So, Mrs. Louise Swift was the general chairman, and basically they had 3 one-hour talent shows on the stage. They had movies, they had a freak show, a zoo, a fun house. Gaylord Willman from the middle school, right, organized a dance. There was ballroom dancing and square dancing. And Jerry Rasmussen, well known for fundraising, showed films throughout the whole evening. Sheriff Lauren Felderman and his wife, B. Felderman, were in charge of the freak show. I couldn't find much out about that. And the cafeteria was opened up with food to feed 1,500 people, as well as little concessions where they sold popcorn balls and candy apples and cotton candy and ice cream bars and all that kind of thing. Anything they could think of to raise money to equip this new schoolhouse that they had. So this is just a newspaper photograph that talks about some of the things that they went on, and it sounds like such a great event. But everybody in town, I think, was helping at that time to get the school what they needed in order to function. And they had a great time. I don't know much also about this Mr. Thinkanoodle that we see being made here, but that was made at Forrest Tubbs' workshop, as you can see, Elm Crest Apple Orchard. And some of you will recognize these technicians. But you know, I'm wondering if if you can help me out, I'm wondering if we have the names out of order because, whoops, this is obviously George Kloppenberg, right? And this is Mr. Zucksworth, I think. But I'm not sure which of these is Forrest Tubbs, because I knew Forrest Tubbs, and is it him? I think maybe we have more, and is this Melvin Foster? I don't know.
No, that looks like Melvin on the right.
This is Melvin?
Not the other one.
This one. This is Melvin. Well, does that look like Forrest Tubbs?
Yeah.
I don't think so. But anyway, that's what the newspaper said. So maybe we have something named wrong here. But can you just imagine the great time these guys had meeting at Forrest Workshop and building this robot? Nothing like the robots we have today, I'm sure. So they worked hard, and they did a great thing, and they had a lot of fun doing it. So back to the program that was sent to us by Phil Hayes. This was kind of the program of the show, and you can see there were some guitar specialties sprinkled in and out. But I don't think I had ever heard of this L&L Dance Studio in Clinton, Iowa. I don't know if anybody recognizes the name of this guitar player. I couldn't find anything in the papers about this, but it's just interesting that they seem to have performed several times. We see other names there that we remember, like Bill McKay. I remember him from school. And so they just had a fun time. But again, it's interesting to read the note. Any resemblance to the truth of this program's advertising is strictly coincidental. And as we know, I'm sure that all of these businesses, I'm sure that all businesses, even the ones that aren't mentioned here, contributed to help the school get started. So we're just going to look at some of these ads. Some of them are truly clever. And then talk a little bit maybe about the businesses and what you might remember about these businesses. And the first one is Jackson State Savings Bank. And so you see their little saying there as they were part of this. And of course, and the photos that we kind of put with this, I don't know if you realize, but Jackson State Savings Bank started in the corner where Carson's Drugstore was, where the Mexican restaurant is now. For a long time, that was Jackson State Savings Bank. Of course, by 1954, they would have moved to 120 South Main Street, where we know Innovative 120 is today, right? Beautiful, beautiful building. And I'm sorry to say we don't have very many good pictures of that building, which is terrible. But there you see it in the background. That in 1954 was Jackson State Savings Bank. And I just want to applaud the Abbotts, Robert Abbott and his wife. They have done so much to restore the building. we here are aware of all of the research that they did, because they did a lot of it here, to try to find out all of the historic things so that they could put it back together as closely as possible. They redid the mezzanine that went around the whole building that had been part of taken out for a long time. That's where he holds some of his Innovate 120 classes for youngsters that show a lot of promise in this area, to help them learn, teach them how to think out of the box and that sort of thing. But he even went so far as to import terracotta tiles from Italy to replace the missing tiles or the broken tiles that were on front of the building. And just went all out to restore that beautiful building so that it'll be with us for many years. So that is the building. Another ad that that I thought was kind of interesting was Green Bay Lumber Company's ad. And Kozak cleaners. So also, we don't have any 1954 pictures of, well, that's not 1954, but you remember that that's where Green Bay Lumber Company was, way back then. And I just remember, well, Al Meyer, who managed that for so long, and his daughter Ann was so special, and she was in school with us. So please, if any of you have any thoughts about these businesses as we go along, please add them. No photos at all of Kozak Cleaners. Does anybody remember where Kozak Cleaners was?
Otto Street.
Otto Street? Okay. Was it? It was a little kind of a cement block building, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and it was there for many years.
The building's still there.
Is it? Okay, the building's still there. And when I think of our problems at Clinton Engine with contamination, with TCE, I always think about Kozak Cleaners being so close to us, because you know, cleaners, dry cleaners were the other people that used TCE all the time, and maybe help contribute to our problem. I don't know, but that always occurs in my mind. So would this have been the parents of John Kozak? Same family?
Yeah.
Okay, so I do remember John.
The woman was Tootie, I don't remember his name.
Tootie?
Tootie.
Oh, okay.
D and Tootie.
I think Chuck was his name.
I don't know.
D and Tootie. Okay, Kozak. Okay, thank you. All right. Something's missing from this picture. Okay, so what happened to that picture?
Mr. Rasmussen ad.
Okay, so customer to Max, and you can see what they said. So Jerry Rasmussen, as I said, played a huge part in this, and I'm sure the Rasmussen Motor Company contributed heavily to the new school. But this was their ad. I guess I just forgot to put the heading on it. The photo that we picked out for Rasmussen Motor Sales was this. They raced cars in some of the stock car races and things like that, and I just thought that was a fascinating picture. Don't have any information with it, and I don't know where it came from. I do know that this is Blondie Rasmussen, Jerry Rasmussen's father. His name was Lige, and he's in our Hall of Fame. He was a great Lige. Thank you. That's probably right. He was. He's in our Hall of Fame, and just a great businessman with Coconut. I do not know who these other men are, but this is part of their building. So to move on to the next one, the Manning Meat Market. I thought that was kind of clever. So who remembers where the Manning Meat Market was? 1954.
Was it on North Main?
I bet it was, but I do not know the answer to that question.
It was on North Main Street.
On North Main Street, which side of the street?
East to east, yeah.
The east side of the street.
Yeah, down from the bakery.
Okay.
Was it the one with the step up? Into
I
it,
think so.
I think so too.
Okay. So, and I didn't find any photographs of this in our photo archives. Obviously, we have a little work to do here. And then the Hoffman grocery store was on North Main Street.
Across the street wasn't it?
Was it? I don't remember that. I should remember, but I don't remember. So the Hoffman grocery store. So I don't have pictures of those, but
No, I'm sorry, so Westfall was across the street. I'm not sure we're talking about.
Westfall, I do know, was on, in the middle of South Main Street, in the middle of the block on the west side, because when we were going to school, Joy Westfall was part of that group, Joy Lyman, and when we would leave for lunch, we would walk out of City Hall and through the parking lot over in the back door of her dad's grocery store. So I do know that that's where that store was, but I don't know where the other one was. Okay, so the next ad that we have, I thought was really cute. Macokota Municipal Electric Department. So I need to move the door.
You go out in the store and
Isn't that cute? And then the picture that goes with it is that better? The picture that goes with it is really appropriate because you'll remember the old Macokota Electric Company building down there and how often that river flooded and how often that was underwater. What is it? That's where they produced electricity. It had dynamos in it, and they produced electricity there for a long time. Because Macokota was one of those places that had not only the Macokota Dam producing electricity, they also had steam turbines here that ran on coal, and they made electricity there. And the only reason I remember that is we were probably one of the few people in town that had both at our house. My house, where I live now, my dad's house, in the house we had one, and in his business out behind, we had the other. So anytime there was a storm and the electricity went out, which was often back in the day, because I'm very old, back in the day, we would just run drop cords from one to the other, so we almost always had electricity because they didn't very often both go out at the same time. So that was a special thing about Macokota. Not only did we have the first early electric lights downtown, they called Macokota the Great White Way because we had some of the first lit streets in probably all of the Midwest, the Great White Way. But I just think that's an awesome picture. Okay, back to Carson's drugstore that we saw just a little bit ago. And that's a cute hat too. And of course, not too long ago, we talked about Carson's drugstore. We talked about the famous raspberry bar and how all the businessmen would gather there every morning to have their morning coffee, et cetera, et cetera.
Where's that at?
So it's where the Mexican restaurant was, right on that corner, where Jackson State Bank was to begin with. So that building has been quite a building through its lifetime, and that's really neat. So that's the raspberry bar. And that was a clever ad. Okay, you remember where Nissan Cleaners was? Then there's a picture, so we're right across from the post office, right? And Macokota State Bank is in this area, so correct me if I'm wrong. This is the area where Macokota State Bank was. I don't remember what house that was. Does anybody remember who lived there?
Actually, I think my grandfather, I know he lived right about that area.
Okay, not George. George Brown?
Lyman Marvin.
Oh, Lyman Marvin might have lived here.
In the 50s or 40s.
And that's probably when this would be, 1954, so, okay. So, yep, Nissan Cleaners. So is this, I don't understand the relationship between Thelma Nissan and Nissan's Cleaners. Was that her family business? Does anybody know? I just don't know that connection. Okay. So Cecil's Colonial Dinette. Isn't that cute? And then the second one. Okay, let's talk about the second one first. Modern Motors. Who remembers? So obviously it's a Ford dealership. I don't remember that. Does anybody know about Modern Motors?
Where the old fairway is.
It was where the old Fairway is. Okay, so who ran that business? Do you remember? Steve? No? Okay. Well, did Rasmussen end up owning that then? Because they had a car store there too, I think. Across the street? This was on the west side of the street?
Ford was on the bus.
On the west.
Yeah, Ford was on the west.
Okay. Okay. Well, I thought that was very, very clever. Okay. So back to Cecil's Colonial Dinette. Excuse me. I don't know that it was there that long. And maybe you can see the sign right here. Best picture, only picture that we have of that. Okay, taken by Larry Hager. And it opened in 1954. Well, maybe they're talking about the music store. But the dinette, I'm not sure when the dinette opened, but I do know from our history a little of the story about Cecil's Colonial Dinette. And I think enough years have passed that it doesn't hurt to talk about this. So you never know, you never know. So it was owned by Cecil Ray, and this Ray was W-R-A-Y, an old-time Maquoketa family. And his son George Ray and his wife, before COVID, they were coming to Brown Bag Lunch. They came once or twice a month, all the way from Cedar Rapids, I think. Again, I haven't heard from them for a while, so I hope all is well. But George did a brown bag lunch for us just before COVID. I do remember that. So I need to check on them. But the story that I learned was connected to the green mill. So you remember when the Royal Cafe was in Maquoketa and it was run by the Marousas family, right? And Marousas had a lot of endeavors. He had Royal Crown Cola that he made, and he had an ice cream factory, Gold Medal, maybe that's not right, Gold Medal ice cream. So he had a lot of irons in the fire, and he decided that he was going to sell the Royal Cafe. Well, Cecil Ray had worked for him, and Cecil Ray made arrangements to buy the green mill. And somehow, before it was all turned over, Marousas' friend from Greece, George Pateras, came to town. And they were old friends from Greece, and somehow George ended up with a restaurant, which he then named the Green Mill, right? That became the Green Mill. And so Cecil was kind of left out in the cold, maybe. And so he then opened the Colonial Cafe that you see here. So then the reason that he opened the Colonial Cafe in that particular location is because historically that was his family's business, because they had Ray's Marble Works, which was there from the early beginnings of Maquoketa. That was there. And then that family bought built the Emerson Hotel across the street that eventually became the YMCA, because then the Delmonico Hotel, that's now the Hearst Hotel, was for sale, and so they finished that instead. Long story, we had a whole brown bag lunch about that. But anyway, see, that's why Cecil Ray ended up with his Colonial Dinette where it is. And I don't remember how long he was in business. But his family, longtime business people in Maquoketa. And there's Riceley Brothers Oil Company. Do you remember that? That was their little slogan, their little ad in the program. And actually, I couldn't find a very good picture of that either. So this is Riceley and Jane's, which is a little different, but this was their record from about that time period, I think. So. Certainly long-time business in Maquoketa on East Platte Street, right? And what's there now?
Till.
What's there now?
Tills.
Tills, tiling,
Flooring.
flooring is there now. I find this one funny too. That's Okay, so who remembers the House of Brady and where that was? And the story behind that? The House of Brady? So the House of Brady was a furniture store, as you can see, and it was one of the first stores on North Main Street on the east side of the street, sort of in the area where the bakery is now, maybe. So Dennis Boy's wife was a Brady.
No.
No? Is that wrong? Okay. So who knows about this House of Brady? I always thought that she was a daughter of that store. Okay. So we don't know about that, and we have no pictures of that store, but I do remember it. And I'm pretty sure that's the area that it was in. Cornelius Farm Store. Anybody remember where Cornelius Farm Store was? Nancy's not here.
On Platte, where the appliance store is. now.
Right, it was on, thank you Kathy, it was on East Platte.
Appliance Solutions.
Yep, where Appliance Solution is. And it was Wilbur Cornelius. And he was just an awesome man. And I remember my dad telling me, he was a little grumpy and a little hard to get along with sometimes. But my dad told me one day, just to remember, that if you could get along with children and elderly people, you were a good person, and that he got along with those people really well. But, so Wilbur Cornelius owned that store. And because I lived on the other side of the tracks, I walked by these places 4 times a day, because I walked to the high school, which was the middle school, and it was uphill both ways, my children tell me. And so I walked by these places. Okay, I bet lots of you remember the R.G. Mann clothing store. No? Okay, they were on the corner where Make-A-Splash is now, okay? But that's also cute. And I have to wonder whether maybe Jerry Rasmussen and some of his cohorts made up these ads, or whether these businesses came up with them themselves. We don't really know this, whether they came up with them.
That might not fly today.
I think you're right. Some of them are going to be a little questionable. But I thought that was really funny. And so we have a picture, one of very few pictures that we have. So of course this is Main Street, looking south, right? This is our famous corner of Main and Platte Street. And right there in the corner where Make-A-Splash is, was Mann's clothing store.
Later become a jewelry store?
Ah, good question. Because I'm very old, I can tell you this. Right next door to it, I can't see what's there in this picture. There it is. So see that? Mann's jewelry store. They were brothers. The two men, they were brothers. And they built houses. They built new houses. This was impressed upon my mind. And they're on, just down from the middle school, where the middle school is now. The 2 houses, they're not new anymore, but they built houses, and they were, just some of the most magnificent houses in Maquoketa at that time. And everybody talked about the 2 Mann brothers' houses. So those were the 2 stores. So, and actually, because I'm very old, my wedding ring actually came from Mann's jewelry store. So, okay, everybody remembers Melvin Joyner. He was a great friend to the Historical Society. And though I don't know where his business was,
They remember him because he lived to be 102 years old.
did he? Okay. And he lived in the White House up here on the corner, the Joyner House. Okay. And though I couldn't find a picture of his business, there's Melvin Joyner in his office. And I don't know who all of the other men are, but anyway, Melvin Joyner did Out of the House up here on the corner. It would be on Locust Street, but I'm not sure of the cross street. He did Way Back When for many, many years for the Macopa newspapers. And I know that Doug Melvold, as a young man, when his family came and bought the newspaper, he told us how, as a young man, he was the person that had to go to the newspaper and pick up the big, heavy newspaper books that the Way Back When ladies use, and that he had to carry them up all those flights of stairs from the newspaper office, and then again, take them out to Melvin's house, and his office was on the second floor, so he had to carry all those heavy books. There's one for every 6 months, there's a big book, and he always talked about having to carry those books up all the stairs for Melvin Joyner.
Something's not right in that picture.
Okay.
At right is Niall Kinnick of the Federal Land Bank.
Here?
Yeah, I mean, wasn't he killed in World War II?
I don't know.
Yeah, the Kinnick Stadium at I, that's his father probably, but not him. Yeah, no, he was quite sure he was killed in
Okay, so what are we saying? This is his father?
probably, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So at least he was a University of Iowa graduate, and probably that's how Kinnick Stadium
Yeah,
Is named, okay.
but like I said,
Okay, so
Niall
we're
himself,
saying,
he was
we're
our
saying in
first
this
high-
caption that this is the football player and it's not, it's his father. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think, or some relative.
Okay, help me please remember to change that so we get the story straight. We need to get the story straight. Okay, and then there's a couple realtors, and I thought these were really cute ads too. Isn't that clever?
I like that.
So Jake Ross was just around the corner on East Platte Street, correct? Where the monument place was? Richard Sorensen maybe was there later. Do you think I'm right? But I don't know where Sagers and McCausland might have been.
Well, they were eventually where East Iowa Real Estate was. They were
Okay.
in that building. But I
Okay.
don't know what year they were there.
But I just thought those were neat. Very, very neat ads. Okay, another ad. Kershaw Block. And, you know, they're back in this time period, the Bob Melvold wrote an editorial in the Maquoketa Sentinel Press talking about the 4 self-made men in Maquoketa. Maybe I can't remember them all, but Ed Kirchhoff was one of them. Trying to remember the other. Jim Marousis was one of them. These are people who started out with nothing and just, you know, did so much for the community and just did so well. And I can't remember who the other 2 were.
Would Blondie Rasmussen be one?
Yes, I think he was, and Harris Penrose was the other one. And it was just a very insightful article, as many of Robert Melvold's editorials were. But Ed Kirchhoff was quite a man, and he was very giving of what he had. I just know because of all of the things that he did to restore the Hurstville lime kilns. I mean, not physically, but all of his contributions. He gave the first big donation to really get things started so that those lime kilns could be saved. And he just did a lot of really nice things for him.
And wasn't his son killed in World War II?
Yes.
And he gave money for the swimming pool.
For the swimming pool, yes, thank you for that. Yeah. So this is the locker plant back in the day, but this is a little earlier because this obviously is in 1954. And that building's still standing?
No.
No? Okay, it was not too long ago, right?
I think it's a parking lot, isn't it?
Probably is.
Where at?
So on East Platte Street, just a little off of East Platte Street.
What is that street you're on, so?
Was it all across from Bill's?
Yes, wasn't it?
Bills.
Yes,
Bills.
yeah, but it's gone now, right?
Yes.
I'm very observant.
It's all gone.
Okay, so we have that ad, and then aren't these awesome? They're just awesome ads. Okay, so Bowman Cattle Company. That was down across the railroad tracks in my neck of the woods. And there it is. And I remember these big old cattle trucks. And when I was in grade school, because I'm very old, when I was in grade school and I had to walk by here every day to go to first ward school or second ward school, a lot of times the train, see the train right there? The train would be crossing the road. And it would cross Quarry Street, and it was long enough that it would cross Platte Street, and there was no way for us little children to get to school if we lived on the wrong side of the tracks, which I did. And so we devised this method when we got brave enough that we went under the train cars. Had to be careful. It could be quite messy under there. And that went on for quite a while until my mother figured that out, and then that came to an abrupt stop. But the Bowman Cattle Company was a wonderful organization, a wonderful thing. And it's near and dear to my heart, since we're talking about things, near and dear to my heart because my probably great-grandfather walked here from Canada in 1846, when there were only 4 cabins around. And when he was 96 years old, something like that, he was still the weighmaster. And there was a little white building out here. And he ran the scales and everything. And every time there was an auction of cattle in this building, the cattle would be driven out across his scales, and he would weigh them, and they would be loaded right into the train cars, and away they would go. So it was,
When did the train quit, you know, Bonnie?
you know, in the 50s. I think in the 50s.
I thought it was in the,
I think it was in the late.
I sort of remember the train, but barely, so.
Yeah. And so we'll know more about the train maybe after Sue's.
I have my story from my dad always having to help semi-drivers back their truck up to the chute there because it was so close to the building.
Okay.
And so many times my dad would say, do you care if I just get in and back up your truck for you? Because they couldn't get their semis back in along by the building there.
Yeah.
It was so tight always.
And it was just interesting in that neighborhood on the wrong side of the tracks because all of the buildings they weren't perpendicular to the street. They were at angles because the train track ran at an angle out through it, right through the Clinton Engine property. And so the buildings were, at least one wall of the buildings was at an angle, so the train went right by, so when they had to unload lumber or whatever, they could just open the doors and lay a couple planks down and they could take things right off the train car right into their buildings. So my dad's building was one of those buildings. And so it's just an interesting part of town to live on the wrong side of the tracks.
They brought a lot of people to town. That one article I have from 1947, I took it to Coffee Chat one day.
Okay.
Talks about all the people that they brought to town, Bowman Cattle Company did. My dad worked there ever since he got out of World War II.
Did he?
World War II.
And then did he not own it for a while?
He owned it at the very end when it was still, my dad was the last one to buy feeder cattle there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is Mishler,
Michelin, that's
Bernie.
Yeah.
Bernie Mishler. So it was a wonderful business. It really was. Steve?
Bonnie, I think those railroad tracks were still there into the early 70s.
Do you think so?
Because I remember Bill Lamb getting fertilizer to his fertilizer plant, you know where that was?
Okay.
By rail.
By rail. Okay, thank you for that. Into the 70s. I was gone by then. So you have to forgive me. But you're probably right.
Go ahead. We moved to Preston in '72, and I remember the train. Barely.
Okay.
Barely.
Barely. Okay. The
I
other,
also wanted to say, I remember when we came to town, we went to Macokota and shopping at, sure, I just lost it, the name of the clothing store. Yeah, and I bought my daughter at the Graham's,
Graham's
the
store. Oh.
darling little
And then
girl
they had the
dress.
thing that went up like this
What?
and sent the money across.
That was Penny's.
That was, no.
Penny's had the
Penny's
double
had that.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this was there to the office.
Graham's
Where
was,
the brewery is now.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, took that. Then
They had one too? Because
Yeah.
Penny's had one. Oh, I didn't know that.
I remember that.
If we still had Graham's, wouldn't it be a wonderful world? That was just a delightful store. Okay, so moving on, we have just a couple more. Everybody remembers the green milk. That was just cute. And we don't have very many good pictures of the Green Mill Cafe. But that was kind of right across from the Pastime Theater, right? So, but that was a great place. And George and Sophie, right? George and Sophie Pateras, and Tom still lives in town. And it was just a wonderful business. It was a wonderful place. Anybody have any Green Mill stories?
George would never let you sit too long.
Absolutely.
If you only bought something to drink, you better buy something to eat, or else you have to hurry up and drink and move on.
Absolutely. Sheila?
I don't remember ever going to the Green Mill, but a friend of mine had taken her little girl there once,
Okay.
many, many years ago, and her little girl said, "Mommy, look at all the ladies with blue hair."
Okay.
You know, the gray.
Yeah, the
it's
gray
blue.
hair, you bet. Well, this time of the year they were special because there were caramel apples. And they were known for their homemade candies, their caramel apples. They had, they made all their candies in the basement downstairs, most of them.
In the back room too, because when you walked out the back door, Sophie'd be there rolling out candy and stuff, and think of the sanitation then.
Oh, I
We all
know.
walked in and-
Well, I just know of the big marble tables that were in the basement where they rolled out the toffee.
She had one upstairs.
No, taffy. Taffy.
I think she had one upstairs. in the
Yeah,
back.
probably, yeah. But the candies were wonderful. So this was, I just love the caramel apples. I always remember those. And as I said, right across from the Pastime Theater. And there's so many stories about the Pastime Theater, and there's one of my favorite pictures. And about that time frame of the pastime. And you probably all remember Dennis's stories, Dennis Boy's stories, about how he was in the Green Mill just talking to people when he bought the pastime. And then, I don't know how many years later, I can't remember, he was in the Green Mill having coffee, and he ended up buying the drive-in theater. All these transactions happened in the Green Mill. Yeah. So,
Steve Stuckle's barbershop was right next door, wasn't it?
right here,
Yeah, wasn't that Steve Stuckle's barbershop right along in there?
you know, it might have been. I kind of remember that Hayes Cafe was in here somewhere too.
That was where the fire was next door.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody remember for sure? There was a little balloon jewelry store over here.
And Lane Furniture Store was next,
Over here.
going down the street.
This one. Okay. And what was after that?
Sager Street.
Sager Shoes. Okay.
All these.
The two shoe stores were on the north side.
Yeah, they were up here, right?
The north side. Other
Yeah.
way.
Oh, because I can see it say. Okay. Well, that would be the north side. Sorry.
Going north.
Okay, the two shoe stores. What would we give to have two wonderful shoe stores in Macokota again? Oh,
Just one would be nice.
yeah, you're right. We would settle for one. Okay, and then there was Trout Matthias still there? Maybe not. Maybe they were gone by then. But wonderful hardware store, Trout Matthias. On the corner was a Maid-Rite.
What about Hot Reel?
Oh, Real was right in there too. You're right. Western Auto. Western Auto. And for a long time, but it would have been earlier than this, my grandparents' Morning Glory Bakery was right there. And then it moved across to North Main Street to where it is now. But anyway, how about going this way? Can you go this way?
Well, I thought that was stucco.
It is.
That is.
It says Barbara above the door.
Okay, stucco.
Steve Stucco.
Oh, stucco. Okay, Steve Stucco's barber. And then what was between, there was a big furniture store. Jackson County Furniture, 3 stories,
Fire was.
right?
Lane Furniture Store was there where Frank Roth worked in the furniture.
Like, isn't that Lane right there? Yeah, I think this is Lane Furniture Store. Well, maybe not, because it burned. Burned in maybe earlier than that. So J.C. Penney's was up here. What else was up there? The big, huge furniture store that was 3 stories.
Schultz Brothers.
Schultz Brothers. You know, think of the ads that are missing from this flyer. We had 2 wonderful 5 and dimes, Schultz's and Ben Franklin. There's no ads from them. And I mean, just saying. Jacobson's? Oh, Ringlock's hardware store that was on the corner, right. That was on the very corner, right? Ben Jacobson's. Yeah, so just so many, Macoganet has so many wonderful things.
What about that on the marquee underneath? Friday is bank day, now $5 and something, $3? Yeah.
Isn't it 500? 500, isn't it?
Yeah. What's that mean?
I think it's 5, well, I think on Fridays, to get people to come in, that was a gimmick, and you get, when you had your ticket, they'd have a drawing and see who won.
Wow.
Yeah, I know there's some stories about that at least.
Didn't you sell tickets in that little booth?
I did. I was a cat. I think everybody, Kathy Bailey did. I started out in the concession stand, and I still have scars from when I was cleaning the popcorn machine. I always got burned. So, but it was a wonderful place to work. And I was actually selling tickets in that booth the very day that Dennis Boy came to town.
It was cold there.
And it was cold in that window, yes. You have to poke the money out the window. But yeah, I think almost everybody worked at the Pastime Theater at some time or other. So, anybody here work there? It was really a fun job. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about Briggs School. Just things that people might remember. How long have some of you been at Briggs? Were at Briggs? Are at Briggs?
I started in '83.
83, okay.
When I was at Cardinal, I went for a couple of years to Briggs, and then moved back when we changed the
Divided
grade levels.
it, right.
So I was on it for 2 years.
Okay. So, by the time you came along, all of you, because you're young, it was nicely furnished and they had everything they needed, right? Do you hear stories about when it was so sparsely, when they first moved in? Everybody's forgotten that, I think.
Yeah, I went to Briggs and taught at Briggs for 10 years, but I just remember there wasn't enough room when we were there, so there was like a little mobile building outside.
Oh, that's right.
Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, that little brown building that was there for years, yeah. I have to tell you that Sue was a special reading teacher. And she was an awesome teacher because I had several grandchildren that needed her help. And she did a great job. So, anything else anybody wants to?
I went to Fourth Ward first, kindergarten
Okay.
first to second, and then went to Briggs. But I remember when I was in 6th grade, Dean Tellison's, whose mom you talked about.
Yes.
And there were 2 or 3 others of them.
And Terry Tellison.
Terry was older,
Okay.
I think.
He was more my age.
Yeah, Dean was in my class.
Okay.
But anyway, we made a scale drawing of the Briggs School for extra credit in math.
Really?
And I don't know, I asked about it a few times, but nobody ever seemed to know what happened to it. Yeah, but we went in every classroom and measured and.
So you made one. Not everybody did their own. You made one.
No, we all, it was a
You all
project.
made.
It was
Oh,
a
wouldn't that be
project.
awesome to have?
It would, but nobody ever knows.
Nobody knows where it was or what happened to it. Oh, awesome.
And I remember the principal, L.L. Long, and he had paddles in his office, and he could use those for the children.
Did you remember Ellen Long, who was superintendent of schools, and he was stern? So we were told that his wife was, I think, at Clover Ridge. And we went out to interview her, and ask about her husband, who was this wonderful country school superintendent. And she was talking about him, and we were talking about the high school that's now the middle school, and she said that when kids got out of line, and we were talking about the marble stairs that go up that are so worn, you know, they're like this, those stairs are wonderful. So we were talking about that, and she said, oh yeah, my husband used to just push kids down that when they didn't behave. And she was serious, but she was very elderly at the time, you know. But everybody was just shocked, you know. But he was known to be a very stern individual, so I'm sure there are people that believe that. All right, anything else anybody can think of? I can't. Oh, please.
Back to the Bowman Cattle Company.
Yes.
What was the first name of Mr. Bowman?
There was
Is that
Homer.
building- Huh?
There was Homer Bowman
They called him Junior.
Jr. Was Homer
was
Jr.?
his dad. Homer Jr. too.
Okay, Homer and Homer Jr.
And then did his son start it up after the father was no longer there?
Yeah, it went from one to the other, right? And, yeah,
Well, I think I grew
they,
up.
they,
They
they,
were Eldridge, yes.
oh, okay. They had race horses, I remember, harness racing horses. They were big into, Junior did? Okay, big into horse racing and that sort of thing.
Is the building still there?
It is.
Pardon me?
The building's not still there?
It's fallen down.
The building, the round
No, the
building.
building's gone.
Well, it's not been gone very long.
No, it's gone.
Okay, it is gone. It is gone. We actually took pictures of it coming down. I try to forget those things because I don't like changes. So I just kind of block them out of my mind and pretend they didn't happen. But yeah, the Bowman Cattle Company. So we have what I think is an awesome artifact for the Bowman Cattle Company. We have the actual blueprint, not just of the building, but of the whole property. And so you look at all the different buildings there were, and there was this one little place that they called the nursery. And that's where they would take the calves because they had so many cattle going through that some of them dropped a calf on their way through. And so they had this special place where they took the little calves that were born. And of course there were all the regulations where they had to, by law, they had to feed and water at certain times and things like that to take care of these animals that were, you know, waiting to be auctioned and then to get them on the train and to get, it was quite an operation, was it not? It was really neat.
My dad worked 7 days a week
I can
because the cattle need fed every week.
And, oh, yeah, yeah. And
One
one
year
of
was
those,
Christmas, we didn't have Christmas till late in the day because one gentleman in our Jackson County area had to have his cattle delivered that day.
really, that rule, that's for sure. There's fascinating, not happy, but fascinating stories about when Bowman Cattle Company caught on fire. There was a huge fire, and it was cold, right? I think it was cold. And when the alarm sounded, you know, people came from all over to help fight the fire. It was in the middle of the night, and they just ran out. Some of them were barefoot. And then they were up on the roof with hoses and things trying to put out this fire, and they burned their feet and that sort of thing. And they were trying to get all the cattle out as quickly as they could so that they didn't perish. And they were doing a good job of getting cattle out until all of a sudden in this one narrow passageway there was this huge bull and it just died and that they couldn't move it. It was so heavy, and so they couldn't get the rest out. So there was a huge loss. I mean, it was a very, very sad thing. But they bounced back. They bounced back.
Where
And
was
those-
it located?
It's on Quarry Street, right where the tracks were. It's down on the east end of town. So you go by there on your way down Quarry Street to the fairgrounds.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's where it was. And but that was such a sad thing. And for days afterwards, there were cattle running around town as they tried to catch them all, gather them all up, because there had been many cattle there at the time of the fire. And the only person that I heard that got hurt, other than the people who burned their feet and that sort of thing, because they weren't prepared to go out and do this in the middle of the night. There was one lady, and you would recognize her name if I could think of it, but she broke her arm falling off a curb because there were two cattle running down the street, because it took them a week or two to get all the cattle rounded up that were scattered all over anywhere.
Do you know what year that was?
Not in my head. Don't ask me hard questions. But yeah, Bowman Cattle Company was quite a wonderful thing. All right, that being said, hope to see you next week. Thank you very much. Don't forget our sheep supper.